An ancient trade route set to be revived. Turkey looks to China as part of the New Silk Road initiative.
We look at the pending sale of the Russian-made S-400 system to Turkey and why it's raising eyebrows in Washington.
And is Ankara's worsening relations with Berlin the reason behind Turkey's search for other partners? We break down the divide.
Welcome to the show. I'm Ali Mustafa, and all those stories are coming up here on Strait Talk. It's been touted as one of the most ambitious projects in human history, reviving a series of ancient trade routes to link 3 continents, more than 60 countries, and nearly 40% of the world's gross domestic product. The price tag for such a venture, $1 trillion by some counts, which will reportedly be fully financed with Chinese loans. So where does Turkey fit in all of this? Well, it's like its ancient counterpart, the city of Istanbul, where we're at, will be an integral part of the network's western end. But instead of seeing silk and porcelain traversing this route, technology and energy will dominate. Strait Talk senior correspondent Courtney Keeley explains.
A network of ancient trade routes, first established during the Han Dynasty of China. The Silk Roads began as much as diplomatic missions as trading expeditions. Named after China's most important and at the time most coveted export, silk. The land routes evolved over centuries, with horses and camels providing the transport and caravanserai, guest houses, providing rest stops, some of which still exist today. The well-trodden network lasted well into the late 19th century, stretching from China to the Indian subcontinent, through Iran, the Caucasus, Turkey, and further northwest.
The Bosphorus, which connects the Black Sea to the Mediterranean, flows as a natural divider between Asia and Europe. Merchants, artists, and travelers also connected here, docking along Istanbul's many harbors.
All romanticism aside, the new Silk Road proposed by Chinese President Xi Jinping will connect over land passages and sea routes.
一带一路建设承载着我们对文明交流的渴望，也继续担当文明沟通的使者，推动各种文明互学互鉴，让人类文明更加绚烂多彩。
Xi Jinping hosted 29 countries, including Turkey, this past spring at a summit to launch the ambitious endeavor, which some estimates put at $1 trillion. With Turkey's talks to join the EU stalled, China's plan could offer an interesting alternative. Projects include railroads that will link Turkey and Iran, and ground transportation that connects Central Asian countries, Afghanistan, and Western China. China has pledged $46 billion to finance a project linking China and Pakistan, and a high-speed railway connecting China and Singapore. $900 billion in credit has been extended to the participating countries, including Kenya, Ethiopia, and Sri Lanka, where the risk of default is high. Much like the ancient routes first established by China, Beijing's economic initiatives are as much about securing trade as establishing strategic partnerships who will look more often to the east rather than the west. Courtney Keeley, Strait Talk.
Earlier, I spoke to Turkish Foreign Minister Mevlut Çavuşoğlu just before his trip to Beijing, and I asked him why China was important for Turkey.
We have multidimensional, proactive foreign policy, and our good relations with other regions is not an alternative to our cooperation with West. And those Western countries have been also very active in the areas that now we are becoming active. In Africa, they have presence. In Far East, they do have. In Latin America, everywhere. When you go to GCC countries, you see the presence of all these Western countries. So when they go there, there is no shift in their foreign policy, but when we go there, it is a problem. So I have been putting this question to my colleagues from Western countries, why it is problem when we go there. So this is, I mean, none of the foreign policy, principles or approaches or open up policies are alternative to each other or alternative to our cooperation of Western or European policies.
How important is this One Road initiative for Turkey?
It is very crucial. Turkey is part of this project, and Turkey is in the middle of this project actually, and in the center of this project. And Turkey has been already very active actually to connect London and Beijing. And we are going to open the Kars Tbilisi-Baku railway project. This is only actually one part of this huge project. And Edirne-Kars high-speed train project is on the pipeline. And we are working with China as well. Tomorrow I'm heading to China first for bilateral visit. We have the strategic council mechanism, and the aim of this mechanism is to further enhance our bilateral cooperation in many areas. And that is what I am going to discuss.
A few months ago, at the height of the constitutional referendum, with what was happening in Europe, you said that Turkey might be ready for a strategic realignment away from Europe. Is this part, the visit to China, part of a strategic realignment?
Not at all. We never said that. You know, being EU membership is still strategic target for Turkey. But there are problems, and we discuss all these problems and the way out of, and possibilities to way out of this problem or to normalize the relation with the EU 10 days ago in Brussels, with Mogherini and Hahn, together with our EU minister and chief negotiator. But it is obvious that there are problems. So we have been asking European Union to give the final decision. They have to tell us what they want. We signed an agreement for full membership. Now different voices are coming from different European member states. So they have to be very clear. And EU membership is still a strategic goal.
So what does Turkey want?
What we want is equal treatment without any double standard from European Union. We are ready to discuss any technical issues, and we don't want any political obstacles. Very simple. What we want is very simple. And we are not asking them to make a favor to Turkey. And there are criteria, technical issues, and we have to stick on them.
Foreign Minister Çavuşoğlu, thank you so much, sir.
Thank you.
Still to come on Strait Talk, is Russia's pending sale of a missile defense system to Turkey signaling a shift in old alliances? And are Turkey's fraying ties with the West the reason behind Ankara's shift towards the East? So we've seen how Turkey is looking to hedge its bets by working with China, but the economic equation is only part of it. With multiple security risks, Ankara is also on the lookout for new defense technology. Despite being a NATO ally, Turkey is opting for advanced weapon systems from an unexpected source, Russia. The decision could rile old allies, as Aisha Jamal explains.
Turkey lives in a dangerous neighborhood, and that danger is spilling over into its borders. The potential for an even wider conflict is also a risk on everyone's mind. That's why Turkey says it needs the most capable defenses. And while it has the second largest army in NATO, Turkey doesn't have its own air defense system. That's something Ankara wants to change. Its goal is to have a self-sufficient defense industry by 2023. But how will this gap be bridged? For almost a year, Ankara has been negotiating with Moscow to buy the S-400 surface-to-air missile defense system, a deal that is raising eyebrows among its Western allies. What exactly is the S-400 and why is it so controversial? The S-400 is a Russian-made anti-aircraft missile system. It's been called one of the most reliable air defenses around and can shoot down almost any target. The S-400 has a range of 400 kilometers and can track hundreds of targets simultaneously. Its capability is so prized that only a few countries have been able to get their hands on it. So far, Russia has only sold the missiles to China and India. But how are Turkey's Western allies reacting to all of this? Well, the US has expressed concern that the S-400 won't be compatible with NATO's defense systems and wants its allies to refrain from buying Russian arms. Washington also accuses Ankara of abandoning its traditional friends. If that's true, what's pushed Turkey to seek such alternatives?
Ama biz yıllardır Amerika ile bu tür şeylerde istediğimizi yapamıyorsak, alamıyorsak arayış içerisinde olmak durumundayız.
Ankara says it was disappointed with NATO when they were willing to sell such systems but didn't want to share that technology behind them. Russia is offering what NATO members wouldn't offer. Under the $2.5 billion agreement, 2 batteries will be delivered by Moscow and the others will be produced in Turkey. Considering the current state of affairs in the region, which side has the better case?
And joining us now from Washington is Douglas Ollivand. He previously directed interagency coordination for Iraq policy at the National Security Council. Good to have you on the show, Douglas.
Hi, Ollie.
Now, Turkey shares its southern border with Syria, Iraq, and Iran. And there's a lot of volatility, especially in Iraq and Syria. Given the security situation on this volatile southern border, does Turkey have a military need for the S-400 system, Doug?
Perhaps against the Iranians, perhaps, but certainly neither the Iraqis nor the Syrians are going to generate any threat that couldn't be easily taken care of by the Turkish Air Force.
Doug, it's no secret that Turkey has had major differences with its traditional allies in the West, whether it's with Germany over Incirlik Air Base or with the US regarding the support for the YPG, which Turkey considers a terrorist group. Is Ankara then trying to send a message with the purchase of Russian S-400s to its traditional allies in the West?
Well, certainly in some ways it's hard to read it any other way. Were Turkey serious about maintaining its strong ties with the West, then it would not be doing what the West sees as a fairly inflammatory purchase from Russia, the West's traditional enemy.
For Turkey, is this just the beginning of a wider strategic shift?
I don't think there's any one incident that is going to fundamentally change U.S.-Turkish relations. That said, every negative incident that happens, the Mike Flynn affair, the beatings of the protesters in Washington, for that matter, on the other side, Washington's ties to the YPG, now this weapons sale, each of these events just drives Washington and Turkey further away.
Doug, in late 2015, Turkey shot down a Russian aircraft near the Syrian border. No one would have thought that the two countries could mend ties so quickly. Did anyone anticipate that now Turkey would be buying weapons from Russia?
The way in which Turkey has solved several of its diplomatic crises, not only with the Russians but also with the Israelis, has been quite impressive. If Turkey could find a way to similarly work some magic with its relationship with the United States and Europe, particularly Germany, that might put them in a very good stead.
Douglas Ollivand, thank you for joining us from Washington.
Pleasure, Ollie.
So we've seen Turkey pursuing its options when it came to trade and defense, but it wasn't always like this. For decades, Turkey was firmly in the Western camp on security through its membership in NATO. And when it came to trade, Turkey's ambition since the late 1980s has been to join Europe economically. Today, that aspiration has somewhat waned, as Omar Kablan explains.
It was one of Turkey's core ties to Europe, But recently, Berlin has become one of the most vocal anti-Turkey voices in the EU. So how did a once flourishing relationship built on a strong platform of trust reach such a low point? The answer lies in unfulfilled promises and impossible expectations. Turkey's long vigil at the gates of Europe has been an exercise in patience and disappointment. The bid to join the EU began in 1987. Recently, the European Parliament has recommended to freeze the process. Turkey has deep connections with both the European Union and Germany. Around 4 million people of Turkish descent live in Germany. In 2016, trade volume between Turkey and Germany hit $43 billion. And there are about 100,000 Turkish-German businesses operating in Germany who employ nearly 500,000 people, and over 5 million German tourists visit Turkey each year. But the billions in trade have failed to ease current tensions. The most recent spat came after Turkish courts ordered the arrest of a German national on spying charges and links to terrorist groups. And Turkey raised concerns with Germany for providing a safe haven for the PKK, DHKPC, and most recently, FETÖ terrorist groups. Much of the tension between the two countries is seemingly due to some German politicians using anti-Turkey sentiment for domestic political gain. The close allies are now facing problems, although only in rhetoric and away from practice.
Es ist leider ein weiterer Fall, wo aus unserer Sicht unbescholtene Menschen in die Mühlen der Justiz und damit auch in Haft kommen.
But the Turkish president says this is a case of double standards.
İstiyorlar ki onlar bizim vatandaşlarımızı istedikleri gibi örselerken kendilerinin ajanları ülkemizde diledikleri gibi cirit atsınlar. Buna mukabil biz hiçbir şey yapmıyoruz.
To find out more about Germany's strained relationship with Turkey, I met up with Professor Taceddin Kutay, an expert on the subject.
Alman iç siyasetini Türkiye konusunun çok fazla domine ettiğini görüyoruz. Bu da Türkiye ile Almanya arasındaki ilişkilerin aslında ne kadar birbirine bağlı olduğunu ortaya koyuyor.
Both countries have a lot to lose if things further deteriorate, and a relationship based on trust, mutual interest and respect may bring the two countries closer once more. Omar Kablan, Strait Talk.
And for more on the fraying ties between the EU and Turkey, I'm joined in the studio by Laura Bataya Adams, who's the Secretary General of the European Parliament's Turkey Forum. Thank you so much for coming in the studio. Is it safe to say that this is the lowest point in the EU-Turkey relationship since a long time?
We could say that, actually. It's not only since 2005 that we are negotiating accession talks with Turkey. Our relations date back for more than half a century now. It has always been one of the key priorities in foreign policy for Turkey to become a member of the EU. Back in the 60s, in the last century, Turkey already applied for an associate membership to the European community back then. And it was only in 1999 when Turkey was granted a candidate status. Then accession talks started in 2005, but the progress has been very, very slow. In the past 12 years, it seems that we haven't come closer together, but we have drifted apart in a way like we see nowadays. This has to do mainly with two reasons, I would say. One is the political blockage of the process by some member states in the EU and the Council as a whole due to the Cyprus issue. And the other one is because we have been seeing deterioration in when it comes to some key areas on fundamental rights, freedoms and rule of law on Turkey's side. This is why we ended up now with a couple of resolutions in the European Parliament calling to freeze or suspend the accession talks.
Laura, very quickly, there's been a coup in this country, in Turkey, in the past year. We've seen terrorist attacks. There's been 30 attacks in this city where we are in Istanbul, elsewhere as well. The Given the context of what's gone on in Turkey, do you think Europe and EU leaders realize the challenges that Turkey faces?
I think it took time to realize, in a way. The EU immediately condemned the coup after it happened, and it showed its solidarity to the people in Turkey. This was clear. Maybe we haven't seen an engagement until very recently, for example. Now we have been seeing a series of high-level visits of commissioners coming to Turkey. A couple of weeks ago, there was the Humanitarian Aid Commissioner, the Transport Commissioner. Now there has been a high-level political dialogue, but President Erdogan was in Brussels at the sidelines of the NATO summit, meeting with both President of the Commission and the Council. But this has been slow. For a long time, we didn't have an open and direct contact or dialogue with each other. We have been mainly talking about each other in the media with a highly inflammatory rhetoric, which has not helped at all in our relations. And now I think we are starting to have this open and frank dialogue on both sides, because both sides should be listened and understood. I mean, there are a lot of issues that are not understood by the other side. So I hope that now we will see this reinforced dialogue. We saw it at the last week. There was this dialogue, and Federica Mogherini, the High Representative, said very clearly, Turkey is and remains a candidate country. So end of the discussion.
Laura, thank you so much for your insights, and thank you for coming to the studio. Laura Batalya Adam, who is the Secretary General of the European Parliament's Turkey Forum.
İsmim Hüseyin Ürkmez. 1960 yılında Ünye'de doğdum. 1977 yılında Almanya'ya geldim. Yani Dortmund'da kömür madeninde çalışan insanlarla tanıştım. Almanların yapmadığı, yapamayacağı en kötü, en zor işleri yapmaya gönüllü hazır olan insanlar olarak kendilerini bu işe vermişler. Yani Almanların 1977'li yıllarda Türklerle ilgili entegrasyon bir tartışmaları hiç olmadı. Çünkü o zamanlar Almanlar da Türklere her an gidici gözüyle bakıyorlardı. 1984 yılında evlendim. 24 yaşındaydım. 1989 yılında Berlin Duvarı yıkılırken Berlin'deydik. Tabii biz o zamanki Batı Almanya'dan geldiğimiz için Berlin bir hapishane gibi bize de öyle gelmişti. Bornholmer Strasse'deki işte ilk giriş, ilk duvarların açıldığı kapıya gitmiştim. Haberleri duyar duymaz. Yani gözümün önünden bir Sovyetler haritasının bulut gibi dağıldığını hissettiydim. Türkler iki Almanya'nın birleşmesini çok da korkarak takip etmemişler. Sadece merakla izlediler. Yeni insanlar geliyor. Türklere karşı olan söylemi de tabii ciddi bir şekilde değişti. Sloganik söylemlerle Türkler entegre olsun diye ve rahatsız edici benzetmelerle entegrasyon talepleri de bu zamanlarda başladı ve 2000'li yıllara doğru oğlum yaklaşık 15 yaşında, kızım 14 yaşında, küçük kızım daha küçük, 7-8 yaşlarında. Ben Berlin'deyim, kendi iş yerimiz var. Euro Avrupa'da, Almanya'da Türkler arasında da çok heyecanla karşılandı. Yeni bir para birimi. O heyecanın ilk dalgası geçtikten sonra herkes Euro'dan nefret etmeye, keşke Euro'ya geçmeseydik dedi. Yani işin doğrusu Türkiye'nin Avrupa'ya girme macerası ta başından beri buradaki Türkler açısından merakla ama çok da heyecanla izlenen bir mevzu olmadı. Avrupa'nın bizi Avrupa Birliği'ne almayacağı inançlarını gizliden gizliye hep korudular. Yani Almanya 70'li yılların Almanya'sı değil. Yani 70'li yıllarda Almanya henüz daha kendi ekonomi baharını yaşıyordu. Ama 2017'nin Almanya'sı çok zor bir Almanya. Türklerin geleceğiyle ilgili yani çok karamsar bir tablo çizersem yanlış olur. Yani belli önlemleri almazsak Almanya'daki Türklerin zencileşebileceğinden korkuyorum.
It would be too easy to say the world is complicated, because hidden deep within that complexity are many layers with military might at the top, but economic, cultural and other forms of soft power are becoming more relevant. Through projects like reviving the Silk Road, Turkey is looking to climb up the power chain to have as much access and influence on each layer of global politics as possible. Looking to countries like China and the sale of Russia's S-400 to Turkey are signs that the power balance in the world is shifting. And Turkey is adapting to this change. During the Cold War, Turkey helped NATO contain the Soviet Union. And when it came to trade, Turkey made even more concessions in the hopes of joining the European Union. But those paradigms are over, and new trends are emerging. The question Ankara is asking is, what path should Turkey take in this fast-changing world? Tell us what you think, and we'll share your comments next time. And that's all for this edition of Straight Talk with me, Ali Mustafa. Until next time, hoşça kalın and goodbye.